Alright, I'm no good at doing intros, so I guess I'll just start by saying hello everyone! How's it going? Today I'm going to do a slightly different kind of video, mostly since I've just been wanting to talk about a few things. They're all political, and I've been a bit late to all of them, but I still have a few things to comment. With that being said, I think I'll begin talking about the relatively recent news with North Korea, beginning with the return of US remains from the Korean War. This actually kinda makes me really happy. In my opinion, I see this to be, and I believe many people see this to be, a gesture of goodwill from North Korea. I'd say this is almost certainly a sign of improving relations between North Korea and the US, if not the rest of the world. Maybe it's too soon to say, but to the optimistic among us, I'd say this certainly gives you something to look forward to. It's certainly better than it was a few years ago, that's all I'm gonna say. Also in this light, I'd like to take the time to say I appreciate the summits that have happened between Trump and Kim. Again, though being cautiously optimistic, this could be a sign of better things to come. Even though no major agreements or compromises have been made, I still think we've taken huge strides. I suppose it also makes sense to address people's concerns over North Korea's apparent continuation with their nuclear program, despite saying they've had a commitment to denuclearize. To that I have a few things to say, the first being that North Korea's statement was pretty vague. They never really said when it would begin, if at all, merely that they had a commitment to it. As much as we don't like North Korea, it's important to remember that they're still their own nation and very much in charge of their own decisions. It's also worth noting that this wouldn't be the first time a nation's enjoyed agreements are backpedaled. This is especially true since, again, this is North Korea we're dealing with. They could just be trying to say and do all the right things because of the massive amount of pressure that's being put on them. Perhaps, though, this time is different. It certainly seems like it is, and I'd say that's cause to be cautiously optimistic. Personally, I don't think the nuclear situation is that big of a deal. Yet. It's important to remember that diplomacy takes time, and what we're seeing right now is just the beginning stages. As much as we like to think of North Korea as a sort of rogue nation, we need to keep in mind that Kim himself appears to be very intelligent. I think it would be highly unlikely for North Korea to use nuclear weapons as anything other than a bargaining tool. I especially think this is true with the US, considering the prospect of nuclear war. That's not even mentioning the lucrative size of the US nuclear arsenal. Nuclear war at any level would be devastating. Though it's an old concept, I'm confident that MAD, or mutually assured destruction, would keep us, and everyone else for that matter, from any form of nuclear war. North Korea may very well just be wary after seeing what's happened to other countries that have denuclearized, and in some cases, rightfully so. Also, I'm glad to see that they're doing it, but I'm not exactly sure why North Korea is opening up like this. It could be due to some of the things I mentioned earlier, such as the heavy sanctions or merely the pressure of knowing just how high the odds are against them. Or it could be Trump. Love him or hate him, I think we can all agree that he can be pretty unpredictable at times. He also appears to be willing to go, for better or for worse, where other people aren't. I'd say those are traits that could strike fear into the hearts of his enemies, or at very least make them nervous. Most likely, I'd say it's a combination of all of these factors. I believe that diplomacy and the easing of tensions with North Korea could be very good for the Trump presidency. If Trump is able to succeed, then I'd say it's possible to overshadow the Russia investigation in the history books. Just something to think about. Speaking of the Russia investigation, I have a few mixed feelings on it. I'm both happy and upset that it's back in the news. Upset because this could mean more trouble for Trump and in turn the general position of the president, and happy because it brings back the attention of the people. With something like this, I'd say that's doubly important, since I'd say any meddling from a foreign country would be a fundamental attack on our government and our democracy. And let me just state that this isn't an attack on Trump. Don't get me wrong, I would be absolutely mortified, but only partially surprised, if he and his campaign did indeed collude with Russia, but that's not the only part of the picture. Russian meddling is not limited to Trump. You'd be foolish to think it was. Their goal isn't to elect Trump, it's much more sinister. They want to cause confusion and undermine people's faith in the government. I think Trump needs to take the Russia investigation far more seriously and begin to treat it like the threat that it really is. As I said, the implications of a foreign country interfering with our political system is extremely terrifying. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments, I suppose. As a bit of a last note, I would like to talk about the midterms. They could really end up changing the balance of Democrats and Republicans in Congress, and because of this, in my opinion, end up changing the course of the entire presidency. Really, from this, I imagine two situations coming after midterms. In one, you have a situation with majority Democrats, and in the other, you have a situation for majority Republicans. I can see the benefits and drawbacks to both. Keeping a majority Republican Congress, similar to what we have now, would allow for a more efficient Congress, since they are likely to be more aligned with the president. However, I don't necessarily agree with every Republican aspect, so that's a bit of a drawback, at least for me, and I suppose for other people as well. Looking at a majority Democrat Congress, I think we would see a situation where the president's more kept in check. The downside, of course, being the Congress would lose some of its efficiency. It's also worth noting that both sides have their extremists, but the far left seems to scare me a bit more, especially since they appear to be gaining more prominence. People like Alexandria Cortez of New York, with some giving them nicknames such as, well, Red Cortez. I don't know about you, but to me that doesn't seem very flattering. I haven't heard much of the far right these days. I'm absolutely not saying they don't exist. I'm just saying that I haven't heard much from them, at least not in my sphere. And it appears to me that they don't seem to have the same mainstream prominence that the far left has managed to obtain. But again, that's just my opinion. So I'd love to hear yours in the comments below. It will really be interesting to see how this all turns out. If you liked this video, please feel free to leave a like, or subscribe. I post a lot of stuff really inconsistently, so there's that. With that being said, goodbye, and I'll see you next time.